And in with the... Well, greetings world, and greetings Seven Spot. Seven Spot Jim here. Boy, do we have a great show for you today. I can't even begin to imagine the thousands and thousands and thousands of people who've been made aware of the word low cost through this book. Build Your Own Sports Car for as little as 250 pounds and race it, by Ron Champion. A few years back, Ron made the painful decision to sell Locost #1. And today's guest is the custodian of this iconic car. So this is going to be great, but before we get started, I'm going to implore you, please hit that like, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us spread the message. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Matt Reid. Hello, Matt. How are you
Hello.
today?
I'm very well. Good morning, Jim. Are you well?
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock in the morning here in beautiful British Columbia, and you're in Gloucester somewhere. And it's
Indeed.
Lovely summer weather where you are, 24 degrees as I understand it, and rainy here with 14 degrees is be our expectant high today. So let's have a sunny time, and the story of Locost #1 has been truly well documented. And it's been passed into your hands. And I'm very, very keen, as I've always said, the best thing about our little cars is the stories that they help us tell. So would you mind just telling us how the Locost #1 came into your hands?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And it's a pleasure to tell the story and kind of extend the story. I hope, early days for us in the grand scheme of 30 years plus of low-cost history. So yeah, my experience with 001 started from my daughter.
Wow.
So oddly enough, in the book, I think Ron's son James was about 15, and my daughter was a similar age.
Oh, really?
And she said, we were having the chat, as you do at that age, you've got to think about what you want to do in life just a bit so you can set your education up. And she said, I want to work in Formula One.
Wow.
Okay. Well, great, fantastic. So what do you want to do? Do you want to be in PR, comms, logistics, or engineering? You're good, do your STEM subjects. I don't want to do STEM. But okay, so I realized the reality was she liked Formula One. I couldn't think of anything else for a career. So I got in contact with a good friend called Greg Smith. Greg races in the UK low-cost series. I've known him since I was a lot smaller than I am today, 40 years indeed. Greg's been running for 10 years in the series, and he got in contact and said, who helps you out for the racing with your low-cost weekends? He said, well, me. It's me, the van, the tools, and we all club in if something happens. It's a great series. So I said, would you fancy a pit crew? And this is just in the end of some of the COVID lockdowns 2 years ago now. Do you fancy a pit crew? And Abby said, yeah, okay. So I said, well, if you want to be in Formula One, you can be a pit crew. There you go. So we drove to Donington Park in East Midlands of the UK. And we helped Greg and Abby pitted for him. I was the hand to Abby, and Abby checked the fuel, loaded the fuel, and just did everything, really. Got very hands-on. Greg was very good to her, very kind. And a couple of other drivers, including Keith Malpas, were fantastic. Welcomed her, made her feel part of the team. So she knew what it was to motor race at the most basic level, but at a level, which was fantastic. So,
well, let me jump into the bit of the story that I know of. In what state was Locost 001 in when it came into your possession?
So our timing very quickly evolved from being at the Locost series and just getting the bug for it. So we just joined some of the Facebook pages. We chatted on the way back about the romance of buying a car and running a car, building a car. but just joined in to soak up some information and think about what we could do. And then we saw Ron Champion's post on Facebook, where he shared the sad news that he was having to part with a car and was interested in people who would like to take it on. So he'd wheeled it out of the shed for the photos that are on, been circulated quite widely for the first time in 27 years.
27 years. Wow.
27 years. In the book, it was famously driven to Paris and a loop around the Arc de Triomphe, I think. But really, otherwise, it hadn't been on the road for I think it did a couple of years, and then the son James lost interest and outgrew the car. So yeah, it's been sat in his shed, and he ran the engine regularly, got it up to speed. It was still had to be hot wired by that stage, but the engine would run. But otherwise, most other things, certainly all of the chrome, a lot of the paintwork had expired.
And as I understand it, there was some wiring issues, and there were also some locked cylinders as well.
Yeah, there were certainly sort of brake cylinders, master cylinders had perished. Bearing in mind, this is a car made from salvage parts 30 years ago that then sat for 27 years after that. The 50 or 60 or indeterminate number of years that they'd existed for meant that they were, they weren't so good. But of course, rear axles, and Ron, was a mechanical engineer and trained students in engineering, and he built a good car. The rose jointing, the quality of the finish work is phenomenal. So the bodywork itself, the build itself, and a lot of the finish was fantastic. It just needed and continues to need some perfecting. It included wiring. So as you say, we just took a look at it, made an assessment about everything, and just pulled every cable out, took lots of photos, and stripped every cable out of it, just to think, let's start from the beginning again. So yeah, that's where we started the journey. Wow.
And where do we go from here? Can we start the journey, do you think?
Well, she starts. She starts off her own loom. We can go and have a look in a minute if you like. The journey for me really has been, I've tried to balance out limited possible modernization as I could do. Having said that, there are some practical steps because I'm not an engineer. My dad was, and I'm from a family of engineers, but my engineering career did not happen. Many legacies have gone into getting the car where it is now, including my dad, who was 30 years as an aircraft engineer on Concorde. He's lent me his tools because I've got a hybrid of all sorts of measurements and sizes and dimensions on the car. So for us now, the final step really is the final preparation. So we have electrical testing, brake line finishing, windscreen to go on, and a few fittings to go, and she should be on the road. So hopefully I can share that with yourself and the forum soon, Jim.
Wonderful. Whenever you are ready, we are ready too. So I'll let you take the lead. In fact, what I should probably do is take myself out of the picture and put you into solo, because this is the funnest part, and this is everything that everybody has come to see.
Brilliant. Let's do that. So I'll just walk you through to the garage.
Yeah, no worries at all.
I think your mic's just playing up a bit there, Jim, by the way.
My mic is phased out?
You're there now. You're all good.
Okay, good.
So I'll just swap the cameras around. Back camera. There we go. So in the garage, this is 001. I just pulled her to one side. Normally she has accompaniment alongside her. But here she is in her splendor.
Looking so wonderful. What can I say?
So I'll just pick out a couple of pieces maybe that are of interest. Things like the uprights were in chrome, but obviously chrome pitting over time didn't last so well. But the chrome light surrounds come up nicely. So I haven't done things, again,
are the original bowls?
They are everything, the original bowls. But what I've tried to do, again, in keeping with the spirit, is I've used local engineering companies. I've taken it another level maybe with using a company to actually satin finish them. And also the paint. I mean, very interesting story with the paint. I think if people had seen the pictures, a lot of the paint down the side of the car had peeled away.
Yes.
And that's because I think there was some primer used, but probably I think it's towards the end of the book production timeline, so I think Ron had run out of time. But I had a chat with Ron about the color green and said, you don't know, Ron, what color green it is by any chance? And he said with quite great certainty, I know exactly what it is. It's 2/3 of a tin of British Racing Green, British Leyland, and 1/3 of a can of Ford Capri Yellow.
Oh, okay.
So clearly I wasn't going to match that too well, but again, obviously modern technologies has meant we haven't been able to get a finish onto that. Interestingly, quite a few, and this just illustrates the limited use the cars had. Everything that's yellow has not been painted.
Oh.
So there are some crazy pieces in small amounts. Again, try to keep it original.
And that is wonderful, original patina.
So the seats are original. The steering wheel is original. They're the salvage items that came. The screen, we're just playing around with getting some new glass into that. These are the seats that are made up, I think, Morris Marina from the book. But the difference we made, and this is open because we're testing it, is there is a loom which Premier Wiring supplies. Did an amazing job.
Correct?
That's correct. And I've got to say, huge thank you. It's been so, and continues to be so helpful. So you can see we're into the electrical testing phases here. But otherwise, every gauge is the gauge that was there. I think I've swapped the dynamometer for an old standard alternator. Hence, we've made a couple of changes, one dial change, but everything else is there. I'm not sure they work brilliantly, but we'll give it a go. And I think, Jim, is one thing we were chatting about. The exhaust is a particularly fun experience of mine.
Yeah, you can explain. You can share that with us if you'd like to.
Yeah, so I think using the principle of a salvage car, or salvage parts to build a car, I've used Facebook Marketplace and chatting to people on forums, including your own, Jim, and we've had great success. This is a Caterham HPC exhaust, so arguably probably a little bit smart for this, but the one that was on there was a motorbike one and somewhat tired. So we negotiated this, and the gentleman who provided it very kindly on Facebook actually said, I really can't take any money for it. It's beautiful. So we agreed a bottle of nice Beaujolais. So I think it cost me £7.99, but more importantly, it's been reused and reloved.
That's a fabulous story. So and it looks great.
It looks lovely. It's a bit meaty for a 1098cc A series engine, but it sounds great. So that's
I bet it does.
And if I just carefully work with one hand, I can show.
That's amazing. You can do that one-handed. So many of our guests have to put the camera down.
Well, I'm wobbling a bit as I turn it upside down to get it. So again, everything. This is the engine that was built with the car. We have obviously done some work to carburetors just to reset her. And this is one of the things I talk with the low-cost racers with. Things like nowadays, obviously, you'd put a small fuel pump in the back, but this is the fuel pump Ron fitted. And to be honest, it worked. So instead of taking this all out and dropping one into the tank and having the wiring there for the tank, we've kept it up front. It's not as optimal, but it's how it was built. So it's things like that we tried to keep. The engine is as it was. The main difference being that the biggest problem that Ron had with the car, and the reason it didn't get used as much as I understand from him, is that his son was, the car was designed for his son when he was 5'7". And it is not a wide car, clearly. It's not dissimilar to the S3 dimensions, but hence we've gone to put a different pedal box in because it was running off a top assembly across here. So we have, again, blagged, borrowed, a kit car with an OBP set with remote cylinders, and we're just actually going through the final stages of fitting those in. And it's also had a water pump change. When we ran it, we found the water pump's a bit rattly, so hence the rad's out at the moment. But yeah, that's how she is, really.
It's an amazing piece of history, and thank you so much for being the custodian.
My pleasure. It's an honor. It really does feel like an honor. And my daughter, in keeping with it, my daughter, as much as she could, has been helping out with the build. And you know, this doesn't come with a build manual because every part was as it was. But genuinely, on the shelf with the parts is the book with Premier Wiring's electrical supplies that we're always going backwards and forwards with. The wiring diagrams. So yeah, we're always involved and in in keeping with that. So and I would say fair play to Ron. The car, I tried to work out what uprights the car has, because obviously it was salvage parts.
Yeah.
I look in the book, Ford Cortina Mark IIIs, I think, from memory. And even little touches. The one thing I should have said, the tyres. So the tyres still have the knobbles on because they're driven such a short distance, but we've replaced them with these.
Yeah.
These are Yokohama A539s, as I read off the tyre. They're notable because they're the series standard for the Locost series. And these 4 have come off very kindly. I say thank you if he is watching or watches this back, to Keith Malpas. They're his season-old race tyres. So again, used by the Locost series.
Wow. Absolutely iconic.
Lots of begging, borrowing, and stealing, that's for sure.
Absolutely fabulous. What can I say? Could just go on and on and on. Of course, your story is not finished with this car, and I just think it's precious, the fact that your daughter is using this as a stepping stone for the rest of her career. I can relate to it, as I think I told you. I have a somewhat similar story with my 2 boys, so it's good on you for that too.
No, it's fantastic, and again, just finding time. But it's been a lovely project. We're lucky to have a good garage here, so it's been fantastic to work with her.
Look at that! You've got room. You can actually get in on either side.
It's definitely a squeeze for me, that's for sure. But yes, it does. And said daughter is learning at the moment, so this is what a 17-year-old who likes cars gets, isn't it? An Alfa Romeo. It's and with 140,000 miles for the record. So again, Bangernomics applies again. So, but yeah, some work to do. I mean, some nice illustrative parts. Ron helped me roll this up on the trailer February last year. We rolled up on the trailer. I reached down to pull the handbrake, and it's the same now as it was then. It's not connected to anything.
Yeah.
We have the cables to go and some other pieces to finish, but largely she's there.
Yeah. It won't be long now, and then you're on your way. And you've got another blue toy over there. Speaking of, or keeping in I guess the tradition of low cost, but maybe a low cost with a skin. You have a lovely Fury out there. Is that right?
I do indeed. Yeah, I think the way that we've established is that this really is going to be something I'm going to enjoy with my daughter. She'll probably utilize it quite a bit, and I have an older daughter as well who's at university at the moment, but she's very keen. She's a boyfriend with an engineer now. So yes, I'll enjoy this, but it'd be great for local days out. And it's fairly agricultural in its nature. It's a beautiful car, but obviously fairly stiff and primitive in many ways. And this has some similarities. So this has come to me just a couple of weeks ago now. So it's still doing some work. It's it's wearing its new coat of blue, not designed to match my wife's Mercedes, but because we just thought we wanted to keep the blue like the Oxford blue they ran, but rather take a slightly modern slant on it with a metallic finish. So yeah, she's a Fisher Fury 1999, Mark Fisher built in the factory. All new parts, apart from as with the Locost, a used Mark II rear axle. She's got, I'm on the edge of the Wi-Fi, so I'm just going to pop the bonnet, and I'll, again, one-handed, and I'll step back. So if I, I'm just going to put the camera down for a second. So she has a Z-Tech engine. I think she was the first factory Z-Tech car. There we got her home for now.
There we go.
So hopefully I can stay within Wi-Fi distance.
Boy, does that look like?
So that's it's actually surprisingly good for space. I thought the same, but I can get a picture for you. It's a Paul Dunnell built 2-litre Z-Tech engine. So it's dynoed at 227 brake horsepower. Willwood brakes. But again, enjoyed by somebody who did a lot of amazing work with it, a lot of good fun with it, track road sort of use. But yeah, she's beautiful to look at. Yeah,
sex on wheels is what I say.
She is, and a huge amount of fun to drive.
I bet.
Running those carbs with that Z-Tech engine the induction noise is just something to behold.
Oh,
So yeah, I am very lucky, but again, very new to me. So I'm still learning as we speak.
absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, almost as good as a summer's day in England. It's the rarity we get some good weather.
Perfect. Wow, what can I say? I just love what you've got, and I love what you're doing. I just love the story of your daughters wanting to get involved. I'm going to bring myself back into the picture a little bit here too. I just love the story of your daughters wanting to get involved with motorsport, and this is the iconic route to get there. Oh my God, is it ever?
and I think it's a balance for me, because half of me feels a fraud, because many people build these cars and so beautifully, and I wish I had, and maybe one day I'll have that talent, but I think that's a phenomenal build. For me, the recreation and the heritage and probably having a firm starting point to work with, I was very, very lucky. I think I take my hats off to people that build it, but I've learned a lot through this process. I'm not, as with so many people, engineering trained. I'm from an engineering family, hence pinching a lot of my dad's tools.
Yeah.
Bless him, he's 83 years old now. But I'm learning a lot and thoroughly enjoying the process. It's been a fantastic hobby, kind of at the end of lockdown and beyond. And I feel honoured. I do genuinely feel that. And Abby's the same and loves the story. And amazingly, she would have been on this cast, but she watches TikTok all day, but isn't keen to be on the camera. So, but in a few years, when she has her confidence, I'm sure she'll share her journey with the car as well.
Well, that's just great, and I look forward to that. But what I will say is thank you for taking us on this journey to continue the low-cost story, because, you know, if it got into the wrong hands, who knows? It could have just sat in somebody's shed and gathered dust and cobwebs. Who knows? But thank you for finishing or continuing the journey to finish the iconic 001 story.
My pleasure. Thanks for helping share it. I think so much of this is built out of a love of engineering and cars and the spirit of how these make. But really, so much goes to Ron. He has and continues to be great support. And I know for him it's very difficult to part with the vehicle. But part of it is sharing and enjoying the love. And I know, having spoken to him a number of times, he's delighted that the book did what it did and created the impact that it did. And legacy and story for him was very important, as he told it through the book, and I tried to respect that to the highest degree possible. So challenge on me, and everybody keep me honest to it.
Well, with that, I'm going to say thank you once again for sharing your story and sharing 001 and sharing your fury with us. It's been absolutely fabulous. And what I can say now is just like, thanks again, and we will see you at 7 Spot.
Will do. Thank you very much, Jim. Take care.
All right. Cheers.